Hello, and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Today, I have Brandon Smith on, and I just got told on Facebook that we have, I think it's our 3 years friends anniversary.
Oh.
So, yeah, I randomly opened my memories, and it was the first thing I saw. I'm like, I'll come back to memories later, but this is great to mention. We've been interacting back and forth for 3 years, and we kind of really believe that the things that stop people from getting to their goals isn't something that we can just lay out there blatantly and say, hey, this is why you're not getting there. Because that's going to come up with you just, hey, no, that's not true, because this is the way that I saw things. So what I'm trying to say is it is very hard to make sense of why it is that you aren't getting to where you want to be. So with that, I'm going to let Brandon take it off with probably the biggest two things. I think I know what you're going to say, because we kind of vibe on the same level. The biggest two things that you see hold women back from getting their health, fitness, and physique goals.
It depends. I mean, yeah, that partially depends on the demographic. You know, there are different demographics of women that I'll work with. And if I were to put it down to just two things, I think the number one thing for the vast majority of people, men, women, whatever, it is going to be behavior change. You know, psychology always beats physiology. Like, I can write a diet to get you what you want in 6 weeks or however long it takes. How do I get you to live the lifestyle where that's the side effect of your lifestyle is the other question. So in my mind, I think it is ultimately a psychological question, which the other thing is, I think, always trying to, because I think this is something you deal with very well, and it's why I send so many women to you, under eating, always trying to cut, and not willing to go into a long enough phase of like, hey, let's focus on actually getting stronger and building some muscle. To get that look, because you can cut all that body fat and you'll just look, we called it skinny fat, you know, emaciated, but still not, like, I don't like this word, toned, but to speak the language, toned, because tone, like, you have to build some muscle for that. So, but I think it all comes back to, if I were to put it down to one thing, it's always going to be the psychological aspect of oftentimes behavior change and a paradigm, an identity. I think identity plays into it a lot too. So, man, that's not two things, but I tried.
I would say that is one umbrella with the two elements, because it was like three different things mentioned there, but the behavior change and the psychological element, which I wish I remember what book it was, but the cognitive biases that we can have is what I was alluding to when I started the podcast, because we don't really understand how these things make sense for us, which is probably why you said that. I do the women that you pushed onto my page, when they comment on things when I'm talking about scale weight and eating more and carbs, and then me getting a billion questions about carbs, it's because I fundamentally believed that I was struggling enough as it is to get the scale to go down. I never wanted it to go above a certain number. Otherwise, I'm going to blow up. I'm going to get fat. I can't control what I'm doing anyway. So how the hell is it going to make sense that eating more carbs is going to help me? How does it make sense at all that more calories, when I'm already struggling to get the scale down, is going to help me to get leaner or more toned? And when we ask, this is kind of where I want to go with you to start this, which is completely different from where I expected. But because you brought up the psychological thing, I don't think it's more so about the psychological elements of behavior change itself. But as you alluded to somewhere in there, it's the identity, it's living the lifestyle. And it's very hard to even make behavior change if you don't yet. Most people know what they don't want. They don't know who they want to be, how they want to feel, because they're too busy focused on where they are now, which I feel like focusing on where you are now is still focusing on the past. I'm so keen to hear where you take this, because you now is you. The you are now is a result of the past 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. So focusing on fixing, quote unquote, the you now is still past thinking versus, okay, what can you do in the next 6 to 12 months to start accumulating to be the person that you want to be? Because it's not addressing the you now, it's addressing the you in 3 years to come, which starts from what you start doing the next minute, not now, the next minute. Because right now we need to think about what to do the next minute that's going to count. What is the one action that you can take the next minute versus trying to think of what to take right now? Because it does take that little bit of like, do you want to sharpen an axe and chop down a tree, or do you want to keep like hitting at it in this minute because you want to fix this minute? I never actually thought of this analogy until before about we need to fix the next minute, not this minute. So on the psychological question, how can we get them to see that eating, well, it's hard to get them to see, which is why I want you to like change what I just said, because we can't just get you to see this. So how do you deal with getting people to move more in that direction where eating more is the answer, lifting more is the answer?
I actually had a similar conversation with a client the other day about this. You know, you become what you behold. And if you're just looking at the past and what you don't want, you're going to magnify that. You're going to get more of that. You'll self-sabotage. You'll do something, you know, I guess, I don't know, maybe it's, what's the word? I can't remember the word right now, but you'll do things to sabotage your vision because you're not focused on your vision. You're focused on what you don't want, right? Well, I don't want this. And they always grab this and pinch that, you know. It's like, okay, well, let's look at where you do want to be. Who is that person? Let's not think about what they weigh. What do they look like? What do they feel like? How do they perform? Okay. What does that person eat to fuel that lifestyle? Let's work backwards. Let's begin with the end in mind and work backwards, right? Well, let's take a look at some other women who maybe embody what you're looking for, right? Okay, this woman has the tone, right? Okay, what do you think she weighs? Oh, well, let's see what she actually weighs. It's usually like 20 pounds more than they guess, you know? And what do you think she eats? She eats a lot more than that, you know? So I think beginning with the end in mind, working backwards, giving them that vision is a good place to.
I'm going to throw something at you so you come at me with a rebuttal. What do you think she eats? You just said that. Okay, so I'm going to play the devil's advocate on the other side where people come at it because behavior change. It's like, yeah, well, she's earned it. She's lean enough to eat that much. I can't eat that much until I'm lean enough.
How do you think she got lean enough to do that? Like what do you think led her to this place? What do you think led her to the amount of muscle she has to look that lean? Because the reality is body fat percentage, leanness is a relative term, not to body weight, but to ratio of lean mass to adipose tissue. Okay, she's lean because she has lean mass. If you don't have much lean mass, it doesn't matter how low you bring your adipose tissue, you're not lean. So she had to fuel growth to build that lean mass. So the things that she eats now, like I always tell people who are trying to lose weight, like when I get like somebody who's trying to lose a substantial amount of weight, like, okay, you're eating for somebody at maintenance calories for 315 pounds. What does this is usually my male clients, so I've had some female clients who are in that range. What does somebody who weighs, 295 eat for maintenance? Let's eat at maintenance for maybe that, or even eat at maintenance for 305. Let's try that for a little bit. What does that look like? Same thing here. Okay, this woman weighs whatever. Maybe we don't even take the scale into the equation, but like where you are, you have, if we have a DEXA scan or something like that, we can approximate your lean tissue. All right, to be lean at your body weight, nope, you're going to need to gain some body weight. All right, how are we going to do that? Like lean for you is going to be heavier. For me, I always do the math, and it's always, I'm struggling to give you specifics because it's always different from person to person, but at the same time, the process is the same. Like, okay, let's work backwards from what we want and do the math from there. Right? So did she earn that? Or, I mean, yeah, I guess she earned it through her actions, which is exactly what you're doing today by lifting. So you've got to, like, you just earned some carbs if you want to look at it that way, I guess. But either way, if you eat more carbs, you're going to be able to work more. You're going to be able to do more. So like it's not a question of did you earn it, it's a question of did you put enough gas in the tank to go the distance you want to go, and did you hit the pedal?
Yeah, that part right there. That was actually a great analogy because this is part of the post that I took like 3 hours to make. But the the thing with carbs is that if you can get really shredded and lean, eating a shit ton of carbs still, why would you want to withhold your happiness by cutting out carbs? And why is carbs the thing
Yeah,
that we are like
yeah,
bullseyeing with the bow and arrow when it's usually fats. We'll come to fats soon in this conversation, when it's
yeah,
usually fats that are doing you over, when you
yeah.
probably don't even track all of your fats. Like just because you feel like you gain when you eat more than a certain amount, that's only because the amount you're trying to hold yourself to is so unsustainable that you're not tracking every single thing that you eat. And then it's not every single day of the week, because if you can't track it accurately, or if you think it's going to blow you over, you don't want to track it. But back to your point, something that you said there, which we're just going to start this section and keep this section as psychological, and then we'll branch it out. And we'll just branch it out and keep coming back to the psychological. I think we'll do that because you mentioned there that lean for you requires you to eat more, and they probably weigh more than you. And the issue that I come across here over and over again, and I know you do as well, is that that particular client that we're dealing with does not see themselves as lean enough. They don't see themselves as that person that needs to gain a little bit more, or they're the particular person. Because I get this all the time. I don't want to buy new clothes, but my clothes are feeling tight. I'm feeling big. I'm not feeling pretty. I'm not feeling toned. But toned, they don't look like that. The thing with toned is that they don't think that that person has a lot of muscle mass. She doesn't look like she has a lot of muscle mass. It's like, well, that's the point, because muscle is freaking
Yeah.
hard to build, and you're not going to become a jack bodybuilder. That is the result of trying to get bulky. However, they're not getting bulky, and they're not doing freaking Pilates either.
I actually showed someone I used as an example, like you gain muscle in micrograms at a time, not even grams at a time. You gain it in such small amounts, right? And so like I took a pin, and we have some mats that we stretch and roll out on, and I said, all right, here's like a few grams of muscle, or actually I think I equated it to about an ounce or two. Like here's an ounce of muscle. I'm gonna slide it under this mat, which represents body fat. Can you see a difference? And she was like, no, because you can't. Like gaining muscle is not this thing where like, hey, let's take a 16-ounce steak and slap it on your shoulder. Now you've got delts. Like it doesn't work that way. I wish it did. Believe me, I wish it did, but it really doesn't. You said something a minute ago that I wanted to piggyback off of, and I'm trying to remember what it was.
Is
Yeah,
that they call it puffy?
the clothes was another thing I ask, okay, do you want the body you want, or do you want to keep the clothes you have? Because the clothes you have fit the body you have. If you want to change your body, you're gonna have to change the wardrobe. Sorry. And then I do always ask, like, okay, well, where are they tighter? Because that does matter. Like, oh, they're tighter in my thighs, and or how about around the waist? Well, no, they're not as tight around the waist. Cool, you're on track. Like, you're getting exactly what you asked for. Oh, it's tighter around the waist. Okay, well, let's give that a week or two and see what happens. If it continues getting tighter around the waist, yeah, maybe we make an adjustment.
That word
But if it's getting
continues.
tighter,
The word continues is really key there. I just had to put that there because it will get tighter around the waist when all you're used to is under
yeah,
eating and not fueling enough.
yeah, there's always going to be an initial, especially if you're trying to gain muscle. I think this is the hardest part when I'm working with women who are like, you don't need to get leaner. Like you don't need to lose body fat. What you're after, like the look that you told me you're after, and the pictures you've shown me for reference are like, they have the same amount of body fat as you, but they have a lot more muscle. So you're going to have to be okay with being a little bloated sometimes. You're going to have to be okay with retaining a little more water. Like not a ton, but you're not going to have as many of those like I woke up and I felt skinny today. Like no, those days are you need to put those on the back burner. Like we can have them later, but you need to put them on the back burner. Like muscle gain is the hard game, and it's hard because it's so uncomfortable. Fat loss is so easy. It's so easy by comparison. Like we can drop some weight, and like yeah, you're uncomfortable and you're hungry, but like that's easy. Here you're uncomfortable because you feel like you're getting fatter every day. But the reality is if we're doing this right, the amount of fat that you'll actually gain is minuscule, you know. Maybe you gain some, like you can't avoid gaining a little bit, but you're not gonna get gargantuan. You're not gonna be obese. You're not gonna bulk, you know. You're gonna hold a little more water. You might feel a little bit puffier sometimes, you know. But if you're okay with doing that for a long period of time, you know, let's go for 10 months, do a mini cut, do another 10 months or however long it takes you, like it's gonna take a longer time. We can do a little mini cut when it gets, you know, like I like to track body fat percentages and just kind of, I'll usually eyeball just like, it's time to
Ah,
resensitize you.
that part. Sorry, eyeball. Because every single body, I hate those freaking in-body scans that do the let's do a 4-month
Yeah.
challenge or 8-month challenge, 8-week challenge, 4-week challenge, and see how much body fat you lose and muscle you get. Yeah, that's bullshit. Body fat is eyeballed because you want a look, not a freaking data sheet that tells you you're this % body fat. But then it's just ridiculous, and there's so much involved in it just because that part is so important. And I just wanted to quickly hop on one more thing that you said: the 10 months and mini cut, 10 months and mini cut. You can keep doing that and dieting for every summer, and that's the point. You're going to look good for every summer, but then as soon as you hit perimenopause, you're going to lose everything that you have, and you're going to wonder why you look softer, why you don't look lean after you spent 20 years of your life not built, like trying to lift weights. I'll say you were lifting weights and trying to eat in a way that gets you the body composition, only to realize it was all a facade that only came to light in perimenopause. Because I think the reason that you sent them to me as well, I just wanted to touch on that before I let you go on, and then I'll bring in the other questions. But you just mentioned do it for a long period of time. The only reason that my body is lean-ish, I would be leaner if I didn't lose muscle over freaking I would be leaner if I didn't lose the muscle that I lost over lockdowns, because I didn't train for like 4 weeks, and that was significant enough for me to lose muscle because a few weeks prior to that, I was hardly training because I tore my hamstring when I was doing my half marathon. And I was still doing a little bit of I was trying to rehab my hamstring for the next 16 months. Once I got back in the gym, I wasn't squatting heavy. I wasn't deadlifting heavy. I was lucky to maintain my leg muscle with the amount of pain I was having through my hamstring. Like I couldn't even walk. So if I still kept that muscle, I would be leaner. And that's the point. Just because you said that, because I did 3 years of eating in my surplus calories, which then became my maintenance. Like it was a surplus to start with, and I only increased it twice. And then just
it was maintenance for the body you wanted, right? Which is a surplus for the body you have. But for the body you want, it's maintenance.
Then. That's the thing. I didn't want that body then because I gained weight. But that's the point. It gave me the body I wanted over time because I stopped focusing on becoming my smallest, because I realized how much life I gained, how much strength I gained, and I loved being in the gym. Keep going.
Yeah. You know, I've never looked at somebody on the beach and thought, man, they look fantastic. What do they weigh? You know, that doesn't make any sense. Outside of like a fun game, like, oh, that dude's huge. I bet he weighs whatever. But no, you never look at somebody, you're like, man, they're very attractive. What's their body fat percentage? Like, no, that's not a thing you ask your date. You know, like that's not what numbers are, not what draw the eye. Numbers are a thing that you can use to measure some stuff, I guess, but like that's not what we're after. We're after that, like, I walk in the room and heads turn. Okay, that has nothing to do with my in body, because I can manipulate that in body to give me plus or minus 5% body fat in 2 days. You know, just depending on how much salt and water and carbs I manipulate for that time. I've cut weight for a powerlifting meet, dropped to 205, and that afternoon I'm 216. You know, like, who cares about these numbers? Except that's the thing. Like I always tell my clients, like, hey, I'm going to track these. They're for me, but they're one variable in a much larger equation. And because you're not looking at the whole equation, I'd rather not share this number with you, because you can't see the end of the equation. You only see this variable. This variable does not tell us anything by itself. You're looking at a picture from here. You can't see I actually said this to someone earlier. You can't see the context. All you're looking at is these 3 pixels, and they look like 3 pixels that don't make any sense out of context. When you pull back and you can see the whole picture, which you as a client cannot do, you can't be objective. You need a third party who is far enough back from the picture that they can see the whole thing, to see where you're going, to see your trajectory. You know, you can't look at it. I tell them you can't look day to day. You have to look really like, I like 3 week chunks like of time. And I tell everyone you don't have a measurement until you have an average of 3 measurements. You know, if your thighs are measuring smaller and your belly is measuring bigger, we're doing something wrong. If the inverse of that is happening, we're doing something right. If your belly measured bigger in the first measurement and your average over the last 6 months has not increased, but your leg measurements have increased, we're doing something very, very, very right. Like we're doing it there. So
And that involves bigger pants.
It involves bigger pants, you know. I think the struggle is truly adopting the new identity. When I decided to go up a weight class, it was a little bit of a mind game for me, because like, here's my protein. Oh no, my protein needs are higher. My carb needs are higher. Like, I'm eating more. I've had this. I don't think this is exclusive to women. Like, this is just a human issue. Like, I even had this issue. Like, that's too much. And I was like, nope, that's maintenance for the body I'm after. And now it is. It's maintenance for the body I have. So like, it's more. And you know, on the inside, little fat Brandon is like, yeah, I get to eat more. You know, but otherwise, he's also scared. You know, so like, I get it. But if you just understand that if you want different, you got to do different, and then trust your coach or trust somebody who is where you want to be or has taken other people from where you are to where you want to be. If you do that, like, you're gonna be fine. You just gotta kind of trust that process, which I know that's cliche to say, but it's true. Like, trust the process.
When you say the process there, that just added something else, because the next chunk that I'm going to throw at you is a chunk of different things that are all kind of tied together. But what you just said ties back to the start of the convo, where I said we need to stop thinking of the body you have now, and we need to stop addressing where we are now. We need to start thinking of the body that you want. But there is the process in between, and you can't skip the process. You can't try to get over that. And then you just said fat loss is much easier than building muscle. And this is the hard part, because building muscle ends up being the hardest part for most people, because no one's ever been taught. And this is now, maybe you can help me with this on WhatsApp after, but I'm gonna now lay it out here in clear voicing what I am all about with my coaching. And that's the fact that everyone has been taught how to do every little variable for fat loss. You track your measurements, you track your body weight, you track your photos week to week. You focus on, I had a call with a lead, while I remember this because we were like, she's lean as fuck, and she's in her 50s. Like, she's lean. And she's just like, there's people there that have more body fat that are wearing like crop tops like you. And I'm always wearing like the midriffs that cover my stomach because I don't like how my stomach is, and she's freaking lean. And I'm like, how long has your belly been an issue? How long has this been something that you're focused on? Okay, so obviously focusing on those metrics haven't actually helped you feel any more confident in your body, even though you look lean to me right now. And this is the issue you're not focused on. You don't know how to measure progress. You don't know where to even focus for physique change. And it's hard. It's like you can't even buy into it. It's like, even if you knew where to focus, it's so foreign. That you mentioned this. How did you say it? You said it somewhere. You feel like you're going to get fatter every day, because I wanted to come back to that point with you. And that's going to be something that I bring up as a question. But this is the exact thing, because if you can't get shown with a coach, you mentioned the third eye, and this is so quintessential. If it wasn't for Luke, I would not be where I am now, because I'm someone that needs that direct shit, and I love giving the direct shit, but it depends on that type of client. Obviously we respond that way, but so many people aren't willing to accept that up front. But the thing is that you need to, I think
we're the weird ones there.
Yeah, it's you need to be the weird one, because something else that you said, lean for you is going to be bigger, it's going to be heavier. And most people, this will come into the questions that I ask you. I just feel like it's quintessential to this part of my coaching. And then I need to find a way to make this message palatable to people, because when you start to understand what actually builds a physique, it's not eating more calories, eating more carbs, and training your butt off. It's how it all fits together with the purpose of how you mentioned this when we were talking before. It's how you do what you do. It's how you eat the carbs. It's how you eat the calories. It's how you train. Because no matter how many carbs and calories you eat, that's not going to build a physique if you don't know how to train. And no one knows how to train. No one knows how to progressively overload. Everyone just follows programs. They think progressive overload is just adding weight until you can't add weight anymore. And then it's, before you know it, the program's changed because it's week 4 or week 6 or whatever arbitrary number that's there. And you don't have something that sustains. I am so keen to talk about this.
Yeah. Well, I always love to. It's like, well, it said do sets of 8. I'm like, okay, well, how many could you have done? Oh, I don't know. So you just stopped at 8. Yeah, I stopped at 8 because it said to do 8. Like, okay, go up and wait and see if you can still do 8. I can still do 8. All right, go up again and see if you can still do 8. Oh, I can do 8, but it was hard. Okay, go up and see if you can still do 8. I got 8, but it was really hard. I'm like, okay, good. That was your first set. Good job. You are done warming up. You figured out where to start, right? And that's a rough example, but yeah, like progressive overload. That's why I think I said it. I don't know if we were recording, but I said we use fractional plates in here because like you can go from 45 pounds, empty bar to 46. We're going up enough that we're going up, but not so much you're going to notice. That's progressive overload. It's not like you need to do weight you can't do. I had one client who genuinely thought progressive overload meant use a weight you can't handle. Like, well, my max is 100, so for a set of 8, I should do 105. Like, no, that's not progressive overload at all. Progressive overload is, here's what you did last week. Let's go up the smallest effective dose from there, right? 2 Tylenol works. That doesn't mean take the whole bottle.
You just gave me a content idea. That's fucking awesome. Well, I already had this as an idea, but you just tied it all together. But this is a thing, and this ties back to what I am trying to get across here, that Brandon, like I mentioned at the very start of this podcast, Brandon and I, like, we reverberate, whatever the word is, I don't care. But we are on the same level with this stuff, where instead of obsessing over buying the next best menopausal protocol or hormonal balancing detox vegan keto tea, put your money into the things that actually build a physique. Fractional plates, straps, get 10 pairs of them because everyone seems to forget them. Get yourself even some liquid chalk if you don't want to use real chalk. Like, put the money into the thing that actually builds your physique, and that is what happens in the gym. And the thing that changes everything is once you switch to that mindset of how can I get my best performance, your relationship with food will drastically increase. You might still have those emotional eating tendencies, but the thing is you're starting to see it in a different way, which takes away that restriction mindset. And once the restriction mindset, the skinny mindset is off of you, all of a sudden go.
No, that. Like that, the restriction mindset, the scarcity mindset, which is part of what drives a lot of the emotional eating, is like, well, I can't have this. I shouldn't have this. I'm not supposed to have this. This is a bad food. I'm not allowed to have this. So I'm gonna have a bite and then whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and keep eating because I might as well. Like, it becomes this all or nothing mindset. But that scarcity mindset drives you for more. Like, that's getting out of that scarcity mindset is enormously important, because that's what I think sets so many people back, like if they are actually on a fat loss journey, like if they are overweight and need to come down, they get into the scarcity mindset. Like, that's what's going to drive those binges, So I always like that. That's a huge thing in food, in training, in business, in everything, So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to tangent, but
No, that will come later for that question, because I'm going through my list. That is absolutely perfect, because it's huge in the way that we just start to view our lifestyle, because then we start to view it as, okay, let's factor a lifestyle in around movement. It doesn't become something that, if you have not read, this was when I was very big on, I was very good at focusing on YouTube videos. and actually watching them all the way through and not getting distracted 30 seconds in. But Gap and the Gain, the book, you need to get it. You need to read it twice over, because too many of you are focused on what you have to lose, or the gap kind of things, instead of the gain. And this is probably going to come back to, I just told people just then what their issue is, but they're not going to see it that way, because that's what we just spoke about before. So how can you put that across in a more palatable way where people see what they have to gain?
I think that's where that's where like the kind of motivational interviewing approach and just being a good listener comes in first. Is like, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And like that, yeah, it's a cliche. It's a very, very true cliche. So like I try to approach it that way. I do still fail at this sometimes because I tend to be very opinionated and I want to fix things. But the process for the mental game is the exact same as the physical. It's progressive overload, but psychologically. So like, okay, they are not ready for this concept yet. Let me start them. Let me just make sure they're comfortable being here in the gym in the first place. Like, go pick something and do it. And I don't care if it's hard. Like, just get comfortable. Like, get to the point that you look forward to coming to the gym. That's goal number one. All right, cool. Let's start branching out a little bit more from there. So I think that is an equally slow process. When I'm working with a client who's really struggling with that mindset, that shift, is like, it really is a slow, months-long process of shifting that perspective.
Yeah,
Does that
and
make sense?
yeah, it is. And you mentioned this before with the fractional plates, and this is the same thing. You need to see your growth mentally as the fractional plates thing, which I think is a really important thing as well, because I feel like clients are like, I just need you to be patient with me. But it's more like, you need to be patient with yourself. I think the biggest thing is that people aren't patient enough with the process. And I want to see what you have to say on this one. And I still have this
Yeah.
like gnawing question. I want to like a bunch of questions, but I think this is important. When clients are paying for coaching or paying for something, they feel like they need to start making progress immediately, or they need to see progress for it. Or if they can't juggle all the things, which I know we had this conversation with clients before when we were chatting, but if they feel like they can't master all the variables, or they're not in a position to give their best efforts, then they're just wasting time coaching, or they're wasting our time. But we know that it's the very opposite. It's like, if everything was going right, then why are you here?
Yeah. I often remind them, it's like, I don't work up motivation to brush my teeth. I don't work up motivation to wash my hands after I use the restroom. I just do it. It's part of it. So like, if you can fall in love with the process of this, you'll have the outcomes. The workouts where you don't feel like coming to the gym are the most important workouts, because they're the workouts that maintain everything that you've built when you would otherwise be losing it, because you didn't go to the gym. So you didn't get that stimulus. Therefore, you didn't get a response. So you started to get a detraining effect, right? Like, going to the gym when you don't feel like it, just making the goal, like, pull into the parking lot, walk in the door, go start your warm-up process. We have a pretty gradual warm-up process here to help people shift into the mindset. But like, start and don't think about it. Like, just go and do the thing. And that's the key difference, at least in my experience with people who are extremely successful and those who are not, is the people who learn to fall in love with the process are the ones who go the farthest. And I've got some people in here who, when they first started with me, the whole reason that they started here is they hate the gym. They hated it, and, after digging deeper, it's because their experience in the past has been, I'll say, subpar. They haven't had it wasn't a good representation of what an effective gym experience should be, right? So now I've got they love it. It's like their favorite part of the day. And that's kind of my goal here, is be the best part of the day, right? So let's make the gym the best part of your day. Don't go for your body, go for your mind. Go because, like, I don't know if you've read Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, but like, go because when you stress out, there are things building up in your body that can only be released through physical exertion, hard physical exertion. And if you don't, they're going to sit there and mess with you. I'm trying to remember. It's hold on. I know it. It's like I think cortisol is one of them, but it's like a whole class of like hormone that you release under stress. Glucocorticoids. There we go. And so like, the only way you're gonna bleed the stress off is through physical activity, And so like, just go to feel better. Like, don't worry about the rest. And if you're making it a habit, then you'll get the outcomes. But if you focus on in the moment, being here right now, being present, quit tomorrow, quit tomorrow. I'll quit tomorrow. Everyone says I'll start tomorrow. I'll quit tomorrow. But today, I'm going to go ahead and go. And that's like, that one was really helpful for a few people who like really struggled. It's like, yeah, you can quit, just quit tomorrow. But today, go ahead and finish it out. And you're always glad afterwards. You always, if you've structured your workouts where you always feel better afterwards than you did before, you're winning because now you're bought in. You're like, oh, this is why I come here. So like when I train clients, my goal is they walk out the door feeling better. They're in less pain. Of course you get the whole like that they call it the runner's high, but like you get it from everything. Like you get it from exercising, right? That whole like endorphin rush from just doing the stuff. And so like they walk out feeling better, their knees feel better because we squatted correctly, right? Their knees don't feel worse walking out the door. They should feel better. Um, and that's huge. Like go in and practice. The strongest people I know, they don't work out and they don't train. They practice. So like when you come into my gym, you're going to practice.
I'm going to come back to the lean conversation later because I feel like these questions are too important to leave out because that conversation we're having on lean is important. But now that we tangented to training, I feel like this one is really important because the last thing that I usually want to do, unless it's really late and it's better to get myself ready for bed. If it's not way past where I can't even manage a 15-minute walk, even though it's the last thing I want to do, it always feels good to get outside to get that fresh air. And I feel like a lot of people feel like they don't have time to do something or that they're already tired or it's been a long day. I don't want to go for a walk. And there's two different things that I want to bring up as part of this conversation. The first one is you need to use energy to create energy. And the biggest part is that many of us are very low energy. And that's exactly why we haven't built up our metabolism. We haven't built up the ability for our body to create more energy because we've never demanded more of it. So you are going to feel more tired and it is going to be harder at first. And you're always going to have that slug as you start to ramp up activity, but then your body starts to adapt to it. It starts to crave it. That's one side of it. And the second side of it is not every single thing needs to maximize hypertrophy because training is so much more than hypertrophy, which brings me back to what I actually meant by the prior question, which wasn't just around the fact that it's about like the motivation kind of thing. It's more so even if you can't maximize the way that you're doing things, training isn't just about pushing your absolute limits. Training is good rehab, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Training is mobility. There is so much more to training outside of just pushing your absolute max when you can't do that.
Yeah.
So there's two different things for you to juggle.
I think too many people watch like the hardcore bodybuilders and like, the big steroidal masses on Instagram that like hoist all the weights and leave no testosterone for any of the rest of us, and they get the idea that like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. And it's like, I love you touched on it. Charlie Weingroff said it. Rehab is just good training. It's where on the spectrum you are. Like, oh, okay, you've got you just got cleared to start working out again after your knee replacements. Okay. Where on the spectrum for resistance training are we? Well, we're pretty low. So we're probably not going to squat 500 pounds. Can you sit down and stand back up? If you can do that without pain, let's start there. If you have pain doing that, let's unload that a little bit further and do a version of this movement that is pain-free for you. And let's practice, right? And so like starting on that spectrum where you are and then just moving a little bit more. But you hit it earlier, the energy. Oh, yeah, the low energy thing. When I was a kid, I would always tell my mom, like she'd ask me to do some cleaning around the house. And I would tell her like, I'm tired, Mom, I don't want to. And she would tell me, you got to use energy to make energy, which of course was like her way of just trying to get her kid to do things. But at the same time, it's also extremely true. Like more often than not, when I'm coming to the gym for my own training, I'm not in the mood to train. I'm doing it because that's who I am. I'm doing that because it's my identity. I am the person who shows up when I say I'm going to show up. And I said I'm going to show up, this many times per week. So I show up, and I know that at the end of it, I'll feel better. I trust the training not to hurt me. I trust the training to make me better. So why would I continue to feel the way I feel, low energy, and maybe I'm achy today? Uh, why would I choose that when I know that if I just show up, I'm gonna have more energy and feel better? Today was one of those days. Like I didn't want to work out, and it was a leg day. So it's like I really didn't want to work out. My history, my personal history was all the injuries, all the pain. Like I grew up, I had back injuries starting at like 16, 17 years old, and they got bad enough that I couldn't use the restroom by myself for a time. I lost the vast majority of the use of my right leg for a while. I had wrote this is before I obviously did this for a living. This was when I was a dumb kid. Multiple rotator cuff tears. You know, I had it, and I had just knee pain, like kind of idiopathic knee pain. Like everything just hurt my knees all the time. And so I, when I did start doing this and found good mentors who taught me how to make my joints feel better and how to work around my own limitations, like those limitations kind of went away over time
No, that,
because
that,
what they really were is uh, misestimation of where I was on the spectrum. Sorry, go ahead.
no, that part right there, I need to stop you there because that just tied back to something else that you said, and this part is too important for you not to talk on more. When clients have had past coaches and past experiences, they don't allow themselves to actually lean into a new process. Like I've had this a couple of times where someone thought that someone was going to be like the best coach ever because they show themselves to be like that, or they wage vet, that's what they vet their coaches on the worst criteria list, and
Yeah.
it's like the worst criteria list, and then they start a new process with you, and because they've had so much shit from the past, they were bought into it, there was a sunk cost fallacy, they just let themselves keep rolling on, they don't actually fully. I always say the more that you energetically put into a process, the more that you will get out of it, but they never allow themselves to energetically put into it. So then they're like, but this is a different process. Like I have the skills. Brandon also has the skills. So I'll say we have the skills to train you through proper rehab training. We have the skills to be able to progress you with whatever you come to us with, where most people don't do that. They just say, yeah, well, just modify it yourself, or yeah, just change that yourself, or you just follow an
Yeah.
app and you think that an app is coaching, or you get a program changed every 4-8 weeks, not actual coaching. And
Yeah.
I want you to ramble on about that, then I'm going to pivot back to the other one.
Well, I think you said like they're not willing to put in enough into the process, you know, and it's like I think on one end of that, there's probably a legitimate hesitancy because of their past experience. So like they're dipping their toe in the water and wondering why they're not getting a good bath, right? So it's like, okay, when you dip your toe in the water, I'd better make sure that water feels really good for you so that you want to, you know, move a little further. That's a weird analogy, but it struck me. So um, where else? What was the? Sorry, I got off on a tangent there for a second, but um,
The coaching experience.
the coaching experience,
Oh, and then the
yeah,
rehab.
that's
Both of those
and the
things.
rehab part, yeah, and there is a huge trust aspect there. I actually had a client yesterday who had this kind of like, how do I put this? She had this like eye-opening moment that ended up like she ended up crying, not sad, but like, oh my gosh, I feel better, and I didn't know that was possible. Like she got down into a deep squat and had this like this feeling of like my knees don't hurt, right? And she had this kind of tearful moment of it was kind of a barrier. I don't want to say the word breakthrough because that sounds so cheesy, but that is what it was, right? We had this conversation about like protective tension and some other things. So it's like we've been kind of easing her into things. And it is a slow process for people to buy in and understand like, no, you don't have to walk out hurting. You should walk out feeling better. And if you are walking out hurting, please tell me so we can make adjustments. And sometimes that very often, not always, but often that pain is just from protective tension because you have taught yourself to be afraid of this movement. I can speak to that about my knees with squatting, you know, and what she did when she was working on that squat depth is she got to I'll have her do like a pain pause, right? So like, okay, here's where you hurt, you're gonna pause right above it. Hold it. Just feel what you're feeling, find your feet, you know. And she did that and she said she just kind of like released everything and sat down into it. And so that's where she was on the spectrum. Meanwhile, next to her is somebody squatting, hundreds of pounds, a very strong person. And to me, they're doing the same exercise, but what clients don't understand is they think training is just the big person with the 300 pounds on the bar, right? They don't understand that training, like if you are very detrained, because this woman is in her uh, 60s, mid 60s, so like not someone who is accustomed to coming to the gym, and it can be it's an expectation thing. People expect to come in and it's a pumping iron. You know that movie with the pumping iron movie, right? It's not that. It is for some, but that's because they've already put in several years and that's where they are, right? But for the vast majority of people, it's like, okay, well, you need help. I work with a lot of people in their 60s, 70s, 80s. You need help getting out of a chair. Okay, we're going to start with an assisted version of this, something that you can do. And I always tell, like, and it's the same thing as skill acquisition. It's the same thing with learning music. It's the same thing with learning any skill. We're going to start where you are and go plus 1%. If we go to plus 10%, it doesn't work. And a lot of people will come in thinking, well, I need to do more. You don't, not yet. You will do more. But where you start, we have to start where you are, not where you want to be. Right? We have to start where you are, not where I think you should be, not where anyone thinks you should be. We start where you are, and then we go up 1% at a time from there.
I think the hardest part isn't actually the hardest part with all of that isn't actually the starting at that place. It's allowing yourself, like people hate
like the beginner's mindset.
Yeah, no, well, it's a resistance to the beginner's mindset. It's you don't want to work on things that you suck at, that you're not good at. It's like as soon as you find something too hard or you find something difficult. I had a client who I asked her the question before I said yes, like would say yes to it, and I ended up never saying yes to it. She's like, "Can you take single leg press out? I don't like it." I'm like, "No, why?" Like, well, I didn't say no. I'm like, "Why would you want single leg press out? Why don't you like it?" She's like, "Because I find it too hard. I struggle with it. I can barely do the plate." And I'm like, "Okay, so because you can only do the plate, you don't want to work on it." She's like, "Well, there's something wrong with me doing it because I can do so many plates with double leg, but with a single leg press, it's literally, I don't have anything on there except the plate and it's still really hard." I'm like, "Well, you're not going to get better at it or stronger at it if you avoid it."
Yeah.
And that's the same with everything else. It's like the single leg press is that hard. Like I can do 230 kilos of plates on my leg press. That's like let's just say 500 pounds. With a single leg, I only have one plate. That's from almost 11 plates to one plate. Like that is what the single leg press is for.
That's the game we're trying to do, is like the game we're trying to play is like, I can't make you stronger if I can't expose your weaknesses. Like the things that make you the strongest are the things that expose those weaknesses. Like we talk about hypertrophy in here. It's like the goal is to make the exercise harder without needing to add a ton of weight through our technique. So like we're going to put you in this position so that there's more stress on the muscle, specifically with less weight, and then we can start piling the weights on. But don't come in here thinking you're going to squat 5 plates. Oh, I did it in high school. Like, yeah, you did something in high school, but that wasn't a squat. Let's teach you how to squat correctly. Oh man, I can't even do, I'm thinking about some of my ex powerlifters, I can't even do 135. Like, no, you're struggling with body weight. Like that's good. That means we found the exercise that's going to have a huge impact for you. Because if it were really, really easy, you wouldn't really need me, right? If you could already do all this stuff, you wouldn't be here. Like you said earlier, like we want to expose weaknesses, not avoid them. Because if we avoid them, then they remain.
Can we now relate that? But actually, no, this can tie into the next one. I'm not going to relate it to that. This will tie into the questions that I actually wanted to ask. So exposing weaknesses also includes what we started the podcast with the psychological elements, with the behavior change
Totally.
elements. Like I keep remembering I want to tie it back to there. So here I am tying it back to there, but now I'm also drawing a thread into the most important part of all of this, which ties into the training, learning how to train. So many women, going back to the brand theme of Ruby, is we need to learn how to train for physique. And if you're going to avoid learning how to hinge properly, or you keep, I'm going to ask you on this one as well later on, because I reckon people are putting too much emphasis on hip thrusts, and I reckon they're overrated.
I don't use
Actually,
them at all.
I'm going to, all right, cool. We're going to talk about that on this podcast then. I was going to ask you for how you can help me with content ideas on this, because I reckon hip thrusts are massively overrated, but females are so tied to them for some reason. Like I actually don't know why there's this high connection to it, but then there's PhDs in the space that talk about it, just like there's PhDs called Stacey Sims, who's a complete, like, she's unhinged. She's lost her marbles, Stacey Sims. But regardless, I'm gonna play nice here. I don't know whether you've seen the recent stuff that she said. Have you? I'll have to talk to you about that. Remind me.
I think I had a client actually cite her to me today, and I was like, look, I don't pay attention to fitness trends online. I pay attention to what's effective. I have my filters, which are if you're not training a lot of people every day, paying your mortgage with it, having paid your mortgage with it for, at least 8 years, if it's not your full-time job. If you're a writer, you're probably not a trainer because you don't have time to train if all you do is write. So I don't listen to somebody who is a writer. I don't listen to somebody who doesn't train people, for one, because I can think of a couple PhDs who closed their gym to do research on like 2 or 3 people, n equals 3, and it was kind of like not great research because EMG doesn't really tell us anything about hypertrophy. And I can tell you, like, well, I won't go off on those tangents, but yeah, like, man, I think the thing with the hip thrust, oh, I feel it burning. Okay. If we get you really good at these movements, your glutes are heavily involved in those. If you're good at them, they will grow. And you can see that by looking around you at the people here who are good at those movements. I lost my train of thought because I had like 3 tangents I wanted to go off on.
Oh, I probably, this is a thing, like we reverberate, so I wrote them down. So there was the fact that you mentioned the EMG, and this is because you mentioned the EMG thing, there's a post that I still need to get up to where what is more effective. I want to put up this poll. I want to see whether you agree with this poll, because I'm going to ask you guys listening on here as well. What do you guys think will be more effective for glutes? Failing to get within your rep range on RDLs for 6 to 8, if you were given 6 to 8 RDLs and then you were going heavy and you only got 4 or 5 reps, would that be best for hypertrophy, or would 20 reps of a glute hyperextension, the same way that you've always done it previously, you hit the same reps, like you didn't fail it, you didn't whatever. I need to say it in a more believable way, so you can give me a better way to say it. But it's like, what would be more effective?
I mean, if you want different, you got to do different. And like the way I always approach, especially if we're talking about hypertrophy, is like, if you can take a movement that stretches the muscle, for one, because we know, like in research and just in experience, I've been doing this for about 20 years now. Experientially, this is played out very, very, very much like every time. If you can get the muscle in a stretch, if you can take that movement pretty close to failure, that's probably going to be a pretty decent movement. Okay, if you are doing more weight and more reps 6 months from now, that muscle grew, period. Like there's no way around it, because a bigger muscle is a stronger muscle. A stronger muscle is a bigger muscle. And they'll always say like, well, bodybuilders are weak. I'm like, I've never seen a weak bodybuilder. I've seen a bodybuilder who's not as strong as a powerlifter, but the powerlifter who he's not as strong as is not using the range of motion the bodybuilder is using. They're strong. A weak bodybuilder has a 500-pound squat and a huge ass and huge quads, and that's an ass to grass squat. That's not a powerlifting squat. Like, it is a deep squat that puts the muscles on stretch. It loads them. There's a pause at the bottom and a lot of control, and there's a bunch of weight on there. So like, that's somebody who has taken that journey very, very far. So yeah, failing at 5 reps, definitely more effective than 20 half-assed reps, no pun intended, of whatever other exercise. It doesn't matter. Like if you're half-assing your reps, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Again, how you do it is more important than what you're doing. It's not about, well, the sheet said to do 8 reps. No, 8 reps was not telling you how many reps to do. It's telling you how heavy to go. You should not be able to do 12. That's what the sheet is telling you. You should be able to do at least 5. I'd like to see 8. So pick a good weight where you can eke out 8 good reps, not 6 3/4 and not 18, but you stopped at 8. Like, pick a weight for that, you know?
Yeah, and this is the
Stimulus
biggest
response.
thing. I'm yet to get this visual up. So I'm hoping you guys can understand this part. I reckon people are trying to glutify things so much that they're actually not growing their glutes. It's hip thrust this, it's glutify the step up, glutify the leg press, glutify your Bulgarian split squats. What I want to talk about, I still haven't got back to that lean body question, and I forgot what
Can I
tied
just
us
say,
to it.
we don't do any direct glute work in here, but everybody in here grows their glutes without trying to.
This is the thing, like, look at powerlifters. I had my best glutes when I was a powerlifter. And do you want to know what I was doing? Like, this was when I was in my 20s. I was able to recover. I never did a single hip thrust. I did some glute hyperextensions, and they are way more effective than hip thrusts anyway. It's like, if you want to challenge it in the shortened position, choose a glute hyper, because you're also challenging it in the lengthened position. But the freaking hip thrust does just the short position, and most people don't even know how to hinge properly, number one, and most people can't even get a full hip extension because you're so tight in your hip flexors, and you're tight in your hip flexors because you never actually do lungy patterns as lungy patterns. You turn it into a glutified thing. Like, you need to, this is what I want you, I just made this connection.
I'll tangent in here. Like, so like, a big influence on me coming up was like a Charlie Weingroff, and I came out of the Mike Boyle school. You know, or it's not a school, but I did a lot of learning under people like that who are significantly smarter than me. And something that Gray Cook said was like, he would have bodybuilders come in like, I can't get the shoulder to grow, right? And it's like, well, the movement isn't very good. Like your coordination isn't great. Your whatever. Like, let's bring your volume down and just work on the function of the joint. And the body would start, the body part would start to grow. Like, what I've noticed over the years doing this is, like, when we get joints to work better, the muscles around them grow with a lot less work. Like, they're getting a better quality stimulus. You can do set after set after set after set of glute thrust, but if your posterior hip capsule doesn't open up well, if your femur doesn't glide back in the joint and you don't have access to your hips, it doesn't matter how many hip thrusts you're going to do. I've seen people severely injure their back doing hip thrusts, but doing something like a single leg deadlift, I don't think I've seen that ever in 20 years, you know. But I have seen that people who get very good at that movement build a lot of glute, right? Because you have to have a good high quality movement. So like, if you think about like the rotator cuff, yeah, it rotates. It also prevents rotation. It stabilizes the joint while you're doing other things. So if you've got a healthy rotator cuff, if you've got good control over your internal external rotation, if you've got good shoulder flexion, extension, horizontal abduction, if you have control and a lot of range of motion there, it's really easy to build muscle around that joint, and you don't need nearly as many sets because you're getting such a high quality stimulus with each rep that it doesn't require you to do set after set after set after set of wasted time and effort, and now you're just tired and nothing's growing. So like, there are little tweaks to be made, and I think a lot of people, you know, everybody for sure, like, that lines up with my experience, needs to learn how to hinge. And sometimes that comes down to, they don't have the kinesthetic input in their hips. They don't have enough motor control around their, I don't like the word core, but their core, for lack of a better term. And when I say core, I don't mean rectus abdominis. I mean everything from your pelvic floor to your transverse abdominis to your diaphragm to your obliques to, your rectus abdominis to your spinal erectors and even to your lats. Like, all of this is core.
Your lats are the main core.
They're huge. Like, so okay, let's build some kinesthetic awareness around these muscles. And there are different drills we'll do. But like, I think if you can get a joint to work really, really well, then it's really, really easy to get the muscles that act on that joint to grow. I was actually working with someone about that recently who asked me specifically, "Hey, if you were to, I want to grow glutes. Can you help me?" I was like, "Yeah." I gave her two exercises and I told her, "Make sure you do them this way only." And she started doing them. And she came back like the next day and she was like, "I have never been more sore in my ass in my entire life." It's like, I gave you how many exercises? How many sets did you do yesterday? I did 2 work sets yesterday. Okay, we're on the right track, right? So like, yeah, just coming back to the idea of like you mentioned like the hip flexors and stuff, and it's like, yeah, people, and this is where you really need that third person perspective, somebody who's watching you, because they can tell you like you're not getting deep enough. Here's where I'm seeing. Here's a drill that can help you improve the execution of that movement. It's why I come back to like I don't train, I practice. Let's practice the quality of your movement and slowly increase the load while you're practicing, but not to the degree that you can't control it. So like when we say you've hit failure, we use technical failure. If you can no longer perform a pretty rep, you're beyond failure already. Like you got the weight up, but it was ugly, you hit failure a few reps ago, right? So like it's a skill. I always think of it as a skill first. And if we can teach you the skill and you can really, if you put in the effort to master the skill, you're gonna get it. But if you just go in and like, I need to be tired, I need to sweat, I can make you tired. I've got a dog out back that's really angry. I can make you tired. He'll chase you around all day. I can make you sore. I've got a baseball bat in my trunk. I can make you really sore. But to make you better is a completely different game. There are going to be days that you don't feel very like, oh, that wasn't much at all. And there are going to be days where you felt like that was a whole lot, because that's what a properly periodized program looks like. You know,
Back to
tired
proper
is,
progressive overload.
yeah, yeah. Being tired is sometimes a side effect. But progress is not measured in how tired you are. Progress is measured in outcomes, and outcomes take time to measure, but we should see a trend. Each month, we should see some upward trending. Like something should be better. You should be doing more reps. You should be doing more weight. You should be getting deeper in that squat. You should be doing this better and better. And yeah, you should see that. Like if you're doing the same thing that you were doing last year and you're doing it the same way with the same weight and doing the same volume, why would you expect it to be different? You're doing maintenance.
Mm. And like this is the same thing as well. Like you need to understand what progress in reality looks like, and that's not going to be a week to week basis. Like it's going to take time, and the more advanced you are, the slower it's going to be. Like I've been doing 110 on my RDLs for a very, very long time, and here's the thing as well: your progress may actually start to go backwards if you're under recovering and doing too much of the wrong work, which is going to come onto the next rant. I think I'm going to pose a question to you later on, but if we are asking the question, actually, I'm going to finish that thought off, because your progress can go backwards if you're underfueling, if your nutrient timing isn't super important, but it doesn't make it obsolete. It is freaking important, because if you're not recovering properly, if your training sessions aren't improving, then there is something wrong with the way that you are meal timing / nutrient timing. Also, are you eating enough food in general? Because some people put so much focus on what they eat before and after they work out, but they don't actually care about the rest of the day. No wonder you're underfueled. No wonder you're not actually progressing and getting stronger, which something that my coach said to me is, I want you to feel like you're actually progressing. So we need to make sure that you're eating enough to get stronger and put you into a slight surplus. So that's the thing as
100%.
well. Like if you want to push your strength enough, fuel builds strength. Like, yes, you can do it in maintenance depending on where you're at, but sometimes you do need to vagabond a little bit more into the aggressive maintenance. I used to play that song on piano. I need a piano. Can you like send me your piano from over there? Anyway, you need to vagabond into the aggressive maintenance slight surplus. Like call it, people talk about aggressive fat loss all the time. Why aren't we talking about aggressive maintenance? Why aren't we talking about going harder into a slight surplus? Everyone is so fixated on what's the best way to do an aggressive diet, the best way to mini cut. Well, okay, how about actually building? like I can't say
Yeah.
mini build because there's no such thing, but that tied around to was again, oh yeah, because if you're oh, that's it. There was a post that triggered me. It's like, this is the best way that you can train your glutes 3 to 4 times a week. Why would you want to figure out how you can grow your glutes 3 to 4 times, train them 3 to 4 times a week
Yeah.
when you
Why don't you
can
just tell me how to
train
grow
them?
them instead?
Yeah. Oh, there we go. It's like, actually, I want to see how you would word this because I have it in my head, but I can't figure out how to word it. It's like it doesn't matter what you're doing if it's not leading to the outcome. It's like you can say all the different things to do, but aren't we here for an outcome? Why would we want to train the glutes 3 to 4 times a week when we could have a better balanced program and grow our whole physique because we are only training our glutes twice a week and getting the same results, if not better results?
Yeah. I remember that actually that reminds me of a client I had many years ago who like told me like, I think I was born to be a power lifter. And I really wish that I had known more about motivational interviewing and active listening then, because what she was saying to me is, I want to build some muscle and tone up a little bit. Like I want to look leaner. Oh, I gotta pause for just a moment and turn this off.
Yeah. So while he's going to turn off the alarm, because I don't actually know how to pause the recording, something that I think is really important to keep in mind when you are approaching any training program is progressive overload is tailored to you. It's not something that just happens, and it's not something that you chase. It's a byproduct of you getting stronger, of you consistently doing the reps, of consistently pushing your best efforts. Just because you can't get an extra rep or an extra kilo on the bar, even in 2 weeks' time, even in 3 weeks' time, it doesn't mean you're not actually seeing changes. Sometimes you may not even increase something for months. Like we all know lateral raises, we all know shoulder presses. Lateral raises, I should have said years, like years. And why would you even want to increase your lateral raises all that much when you're still getting the same bang for buck because it's such a small exercise? I mean, muscle. There's a point where you get diminishing returns and you start to load other muscles if you keep trying to chase progressive overload versus, because what sets a lot of people back, this is the same. I don't know where you mentioned this now because you mentioned it with something else. And like, this is the same as relating to physique change, not just in the gym, but I forgot what you said with that one. But with the lateral raises, it's like, if you can, instead of putting it onto other muscles, we need to actually figure out, okay, well, this is what holds a lot of us back. We want to see changes. We want to see numbers going up. We want to see something moving all the time. But in reality, things aren't always moving. That is where change happens because we're pushing, we're forcing. And the body you want doesn't come by accident. It comes from you actually exposing it to enough stress. And stress isn't meant to be an easy thing. It's just that we become the person in the process that can handle it, that can push ourselves into it. And you're not meant to learn that skill straight away, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's very stimulus response. And that you kind of touched on that too. Like this point of, as you get stronger, after a certain point, it's not that the weights got easier. I think Lane Norton was talking about it. He said he thought when he could squat, I think like 700 pounds, he thought that 600 pounds would feel easier. And he said, nope, it still felt just as hard, just as awful, and just as painful as it felt the first time I hit 600. The only difference is now I can push harder. And it's like, yeah, there comes a point with, especially with your bigger lifts, where that's it. Like, it's not that the weights felt lighter, it's that your tolerance went up. You know, everything, this whole game is stimulus response. So if you're just throwing weight around and arbitrarily making numbers go up, but you're not paying attention to how you're doing things, then you're not getting a good stimulus for growth. We're in the gym to stimulate muscle growth. Okay, that means we need to use a specific tool. Like you're always thinking, or when I'm working on programming, when I'm working with a client, it's always like, okay, what is the desired outcome? What is the specific adaptation you're seeking? Okay, great. So here's the adaptation you're seeking. Here is the list of stimuli here is the best stimuli for that adaptation. Okay, now we can go on to like progression and exercise selection, because these are going to be the best tools to provide that specific stimuli, right? And for muscle growth, like, okay, specific stimuli. We know mechanical tension, which Under a stretch is better. It's not necessarily like you don't necessarily have to have a stretch, but it definitely works better if you do. So why would we not? Okay, so we know we need the stretch. We know we need to be pretty close to technical failure. We know that we need to see progressive overload. And like if you nail progressive overload and ignore the other two, you're still going to see some growth. Period. You know, especially if your execution is clean. If and I should have said this earlier, if you're doing the same movement with more weight, more reps, and better technique than you started with, better technique, you've definitely grown those muscles that you're looking for. And when we say grow, again, I don't mean you slapped a 16-ounce steak on it. What I mean is you grew some ounces of muscle that give you a little bit more tone and detail, right? And so now you have a different shape. What I've found, especially like or a good way to look at it, especially with women, like when you build muscle, it doesn't make them bigger. It gives them a different shape. And that's really what they're looking for. So like maybe I need to do a better job communicating to them, like, yeah, building muscle means building shape, not building size. And sometimes I don't really play the game. Like I don't play the game of like trying to convince them you need to build muscle. I just say, yes, this will tone you. And they trust me, so they do the thing. And like in my mind, I know like, okay, well, this is going to build some muscle. You know, we're going to train like we're trying to get as big as we can.
But
But
that's the hard thing when it then comes back to what you said before, with they will feel like they're getting fatter, they're getting bigger, and like
yeah,
you also mentioned, because now this is actually gonna this if I can stop this one here where you mentioned and segue it back so you can now tie them together, because that's perfect. This is exactly it, because lean for some people is going to be heavier. Lean for some people
yeah,
is going to require you, like, because a lot of people say, well, I always see a lot of people saying online that their clothes feel better. Well, I don't feel them feeling better. I feel them getting tighter.
yeah.
That's not supposed
The
to
people
happen. So
there,
there's
the people they're hearing say that are people who are losing weight because they were overweight. They're not hearing that from people who are not overweight and want to tone. You know, this is a demographic specific question. You need to pay attention to the people in your demographic client who thinks you need to lose weight when in reality you need to gain it. Like let's go ahead and get a DEXA scan. Okay, you are objectively lean. Like you are sub 24% body fat. And usually they're even lower than that. Like you're already lean, you know, like you're healthy, you're lean. We just need to build some muscle. So yeah, it is. And I find I have to approach that conversation differently with every person because everybody kind of does respond differently. And like I said, sometimes I don't even play the game. I'm like, all right, we're going to tone. I need you to eat this so that you can get these 5 stimulative reps because you didn't eat enough. And I know you can do 13 reps with this weight because you did it last week. Today, you did the same weight for 8, which means we got no stimulus. What did you eat? Oh, okay. So you're seeing why we need some carbs then, huh? Right? You left reps on the table. Today was not a stimulative day because you didn't eat enough. Have we learned our lesson yet? Now, I don't say it that way, but that is the point that I will make because it'll happen. It's like, well, I'll always ask, like, well, how was your sleep? What and how much did you eat yesterday and today, and how much water have you had? You know, you ask the questions and you find it. Like, okay, you either didn't keep up with your sleep hygiene, you had a bad night, whatever. That happens. Uh, but on those days where it's like, when you see people consistently not getting it, like the numbers are not trending up, the technique is starting to degrade. Like, what's your diet look like? Are you eating? What are you eating? And it's always like I look at it and it's like this is not enough. You need more. You know, sometimes it's more protein, even though most people know to eat their protein. They still think like, well, eggs are protein, right? Like, I mean, they have protein, but most of the calories come from fat. So like, where's the rest of your protein coming from? Like, oh, I ate 2 eggs. Great. So you got like what, 12, 15 grams of protein. Where's the rest coming from? Oh, that wasn't enough? No, that wasn't enough. Like, where's the rest coming from? Well, I can't eat
Mm.
more eggs. Like, yeah, you got like 12 grams of fat from those 2 eggs. So I'd agree with that. Where's the rest coming from? All right. How about your carbs? Well, what was it they told me? Like I had some raisins. It's like how many? Like this many. Okay, so you didn't need any carbs then. You know, like it's interesting. But if you- if you let them go into the gym and see their performance and relate it to their food. When they see the relationship, I think that's an easier sell. Is like if I have a client, I'm trying to like get them to eat more carbs, and then one day I just give them gummy bears before their workout. Like, hey, eat this real quick. Just try it. Like you're not gonna gain 10 pounds of body fat from eating a packet of gummy bears before your workout. You're gonna use the sugar right now anyway. You'll be fine. Well, the alarm's going off again. I'm sorry, but I can keep talking. So I'll give
Yeah,
them that. They're like, man, I got like more reps than I've ever gotten on this before. And they see it, right?
the thing that I love most about what you're saying there, though, is that you're tying carbs to performance, and you should like if you care about physique change, you should care about your performance. And I just found this thing that I wanted to pull up that I wrote because I think it's really powerful. Is where is it?
Remind me to say stimulative reps.
Oh yes, because we want to talk about that one soon too. And
because that's the game here.
The world that you experience is the result of the story that you've created, your programming within, which shapes your beliefs, your perspectives, and your habits. You create the story of your life and how you see things. So obviously, if you've struggled in the past to get a result, or you've had this bad experience with the way that your body turned out from whatever else it is it because you didn't have a strategy before? Whereas now you're actually doing the right training, you're doing the stimulative reps to get you there. But if you keep shying away from that because you're afraid your legs are going to get too bulky, you don't want to train your quads or this is where I was going to tie back to the training before we go into that. Because women, actually, no, this ties into this perfectly. The people avoid getting their knees over their toes because they want to have a vertical shin so that they can train their glutes. But this ties into, number one, stop saying carbs don't work for you, because there's no such thing as carb intolerance. So then how would you navigate? Wait, before you try to remember these tangents, I don't know whether you can like take a note somewhere, but there's the carbs make me feel bloated and puffy. There's the belief that they should cut out carbs because it doesn't work for them, or for some reason it's something that holds her back, that particular viewpoint. But then there's also the lean for you, like I mentioned, is going to be heavier, because I want to tie back into what you said. Women feel like they build muscle too fast. And then there are clients, you said this before I hit record, and I want to talk about it. Clients who struggle to lean out and struggle to quote unquote lose fat, when in reality, which ties back that's why I interluded with bringing in the world you experience is the result of the story you created. A lot of the time, many women come to both of us saying they're struggling to lean out, they're struggling to lose fat. When we see it from a third eye perspective, that's because you don't have anything to lose. Like, your issue is that you don't have enough muscle. You aren't strong enough. You haven't put the time in. Tying back to the start of the conversation where I said you need to learn how to hinge, you need to learn how to do proper squat patterns. You need to learn these basic fundamental patterns of how to train for a physique, and that is what's going to get you there. Because if you don't know how to hinge, if you can't RDL your body weight, or squat close to your body weight, or deadlift close to twice your body weight, that is why you aren't looking lean. But then you have the argument. I'm going to tie in one more with that. But then you have the argument, but there are some people that are really strong that don't look lean, that don't look fit. There are people that's not true, because people are lifting really heavy weights and they don't have the body that I want.
Yeah. So I use that, man, there's so much, like, where do I start? Yeah. I do use different exercise, like different lift metrics. Like, we'll use a single leg deadlift. We do RDLs, we do all the things, but I use a lot of like single leg stuff because that's the stuff that people neglect. So like, I use the term rear foot elevated split squat because it's more descriptive. I don't know where the Bulgarian thing came from, but
I see them as two different things, because the Bulgarian is more like a single leg squat kind of thing, and then the rear foot elevated is a lower platform. That's the way I see it.
Okay. Well, either way, if you can do one of those two things, like pick one of those and do it with 1.5 times your body weight for a set of 10, you have glutes, period. You got glutes, you got quads, you got legs. Can you do that? No? All right. Well, let's work on that. The people who lift a shit ton of weight in powerlifting, like let's look at their technique. All right, well, that's not an ass to grass squat. You will not see that in powerlifting because you won't win the meet if you do that. The point in powerlifting is not to build the most muscle. It's not to even be the strongest. It's to have the best leverage. So we're going to use a technique that gives me the best mechanical advantage. For building muscle, we want the exact opposite. We want to put us at a huge mechanical disadvantage so that we can stress the actual tissue more. Now, there is strength as a skill, powerlifting, and there is strength in the tissue, and that would be hypertrophy training. Let's work on the tissue, which if you decide you want to go do some powerlifting, you can, and you'll be all the better for it, at it for learning these other things, for strengthening your actual tissue. So these people that you're looking at that don't have the body you want, I don't know who we're referring to. Like it depends. Sometimes they show like they'll show you that picture and it's like, well, that person's too big. Like, okay, so if we did what they did, we'd build some muscle then, huh? Or that person is like super, overweight. Okay, well, don't eat like them then. Or that person is teeny tiny like an Anatoly. Like Anatoly, that dude's actually pretty ripped. And yeah, there is I tend to get into the weeds with details, but like there is a tendon attachment question. Like if my pec attaches here and yours attaches down here, you're going to be stronger than me. Even if I'm putting out more force from my pec, you will be stronger. You will move more weight because you have a slight mechanical advantage enough that you will move more weight. So like that matters too. So okay, let's use better examples. The people that have been the most successful orthopedically and in their physique pursuit are very, very strong with single leg work, are very, very skilled with their movements, and they work to put their tissue at a mechanical disadvantage. So I can pull up example after example after example from my own gym, from my own clientele, and that's usually the best examples to use. I can pull up several athletes, and those are good examples too. But it's like the people in my experience who have the development that you're looking for are good at these things. And here are the metrics that you might want to target. All right, now you know the endpoint. Let's work backwards, find where you are on that spectrum, and get to work. And that usually tends to help people accept that this is going to be a very long process, because when you say something like double body weight single leg deadlift to someone and they realize that they can't even do the thing with no weight in their hands yet, they recognize that's going to be a long road. And sometimes it can be a dauntingly long road. And so it's like, hey, any progress toward that direction is going to be progress. Period. Better is better. And just constantly reminding people it's a funny thing because I think we're often told, don't look back, keep your eyes forward. I think in this case, it's important to keep your eyes looking back the whole time almost so that you can see how far you've come and be encouraged by the progress you've made. Really celebrate every little win. Like 1 more pound is 1 more pound. Better is better. If you did more, then you're getting more. And yeah, the gains are in micrograms. They're so small you can't see them with the eye yet, but they are definitely there and they're adding up. So like, let's keep going, the process,
Yeah.
right?
There was something that you just said there that I was going to put into my little summary. It's funny because when I came back from my hamstring injury, I started feeling really sad that I wasn't warming up the same way I used to. Warming up used to be so easy. I used to slab on the 20s on each side and then the other 20s, and that would be my warm up for deadlifts. And with the squats,
Yeah.
my first warm up set would be putting 20s or 45s. I should say 45s for Americans. When I say 20s, it's a 45. So I would just slab on one plate
Kilos.
on each side for the squats, and 2 sides on, and 1 plate and then 2 plates for the deadlifts, and then I would do the rest. And it's not until when I was trying to write my training summary, I don't know whether you saw that, but it wasn't until I wrote my training summary the other day when I was trying to think of what to say for it that I realized I wanted to do this. Like 2 years ago, I was wanting to have the 20s on there, not the 15s on there, or not the 30s on there, but the 45s. Yeah. And I'm actually there now. I don't have to fiddle around with plates so much. We forget how far we've come. And I feel like we need to also not compare ourselves to a place that is unfair to compare ourselves to. Like, I can't compare myself
Yeah.
to where I was in my powerlifting era because that's not my life anymore. Could I work my way
Yeah.
up to a new version of that? Yeah, that's what I'm doing, but I can't use old metrics. And this is the same with using fat loss metrics. I think that tying that together, we're going to have to, yeah, go.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, the whole comparison game, even to the self, is wildly like it's such a mind game. I think about, like I had a pec tear several years back, and it was like a 2-year process to get this thing back to normal. So like, yeah, I know the feeling of like, man, I hope I can do an empty bar one day, and then thinking about like after some of the experiences I had in powerlifting with my back and with my shoulders and how unpleasant that was. And then thinking about my current training and some of the numbers I'm using, it's like, well, this is pretty close to what I did in powerlifting. But then I have to remind myself, yeah, but the technique is different. And so we're trying to increase mechanical stress, right, by adjusting our technique to make it harder. So like it can be really discouraging sometimes to look backward for someone who is an older athlete like myself. Uh, or somebody who like, well, back in high school, because these are the clients that I work with a lot. Like in high school I used to, like I work with a lot of people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, right? And so looking back, and of course the more time goes by, the more the numbers get inflated. uh it's just human nature. And so you get discouraged looking back that way. But looking back at, okay, this is your point A today, 2025. Let's say you started in 2023. Let's look back at 2023. What were you doing then? Oh, a whole lot less than this. Great. If you were like in this situation with the torn hamstring, you look back at your powerlifting days, your focus is a little bit different. And you're doing this post hamstring tear. You did those without a hamstring tear, right? Now you're working with different equipment. That says something if you can do anything close to that, if you can do anything at all. Like that's really, really cool. Being able to do what you used to do with a different technique that's a bit more stressful on the tissue is wildly impressive. And so like reminding people of that progress looking backwards, and for people like ourselves who have been athletic for a longer time, looking back can be a mental game for us until we remind ourselves that there are extra miles on the odometer today that weren't there at those high points, those peaks. And yes, we do have to accept our own mortality, and eventually the numbers will start to decline, and we're just trying to slow the decline. For right now, we can look at these metrics and put in
Oh,
context that there are more miles on the odometer, you know,
how can
and
you prevent, wait, something you just said there, slow the decline. How can you expect to slow any decline if there was nothing to slow down the decline from, if you've never built it up to start with because you're so focused on
yeah,
small? Sorry.
I mean, if you've got 80 pounds of lean tissue on you and you're in your 60s, you're in better shape than somebody who's only got 60 pounds of lean tissue on them. If you're the same height, right, equating for all the variables there. Like one of those people is going to do better. And then one of the things that always kind of hits home for me is like because it's run in my family, and I've had several friends affected by it, is like cancer survivors. I've got a good friend who's, he's a retired power lifter, but he survived his cancer treatment because of the muscle mass he had. And he tells me the story of this little girl that was sitting across from him in the clinic when he got his diagnosis. And because she didn't have enough meat on her, they couldn't even treat the cancer. So of course, she didn't survive. But things like that, I think people don't realize. Like, oh, I want pretty glutes. Oh, I want to tone. Oh, I want to slow the decline. Yeah, I also want you to be able to cross the street or be able to, like, when your kid's in the street, I want you to be able to run, grab that kid, get them out of the street, and be able to be ready for the moment when it hits. I want your recovery from whatever accident may happen to be quick. I've got one client, he's 78, 79 now, I think. He had a brick wall fall on him, and it crushed his pelvis. And the type of like injury that he had, they flew him out to a center a few cities away that specializes in that specific injury. And I mean, people half his age typically don't survive that. He not only survived it, he's back working out. He's in his late 70s doing chin-ups, and like, yeah, some things have changed, but he can squat, he can deadlift, like his legs work again, and they didn't, right? Like he attributes his survival to the fact that he was strength training, and I agree. Like if he hadn't been working on his strength as hard as he had been, and this guy is, I mean, he's just committed. He's a wonderful human to begin with, but he's the type of person who, when he does something, he doesn't do it half-ass, he does it full ass, and he's all in. So like if he hadn't been training, if he hadn't built the strength that he had, would he have survived that accident? And he's convinced that he would not have. And he is he's a retired psychiatrist. He's seen some things. He's very convinced, and I agree that he only survived because of his physical condition. And so like these are the things that I think people don't think about. Life will throw you a curveball. It's you never know what's going to happen. So the best you can do is be prepared. And I think this is your armor. You strength train, you eat enough to build some muscle, you get sexy along the way, but the real game is building some armor so that you can have the life you want. Because really, what are you after? Are you after abs and glutes, or are you after the self-actualization that you think you'll have when you have them? And what you find is the real product, the real happiness didn't come because of the abs and the glutes. It came because of the lessons you learned while attaining them. It came because of the patience and character that you built through the process of attaining abs, glutes, and quads and all the pretty. The process is what built the character, and the body is the side effect, right? It's cool, but that's not where your happiness is coming from. Though that's what most people think. They think when I lose the 20 pounds, I'll be happy. When I gain the quads, I'll be happy. The reality is, when you get happy, you'll have the thing you want. That's a Sean Aker thing. I highly recommend his work. But it's the process, and it's not until you fall in love with the process itself that you'll see the results. And so like that I will keep hammering that in and coming home to it, is like, fall in love with the process. I don't feel like training today. Cool. I'll see you at the gym. Like it is that, and it builds the human and the body. And this is something I've said for a very long time, and I've still yet to see it proven untrue. The body is an external reflection of the internal environment in that person. And so that's why I think I always come back to the psychology of the game, because like when I first started training, I read all the training books, and I bought all the NSCA textbooks, and then I bought, went to all the seminars and bought all the videos and did all the things I could. And then I learned all the nutrition I could learn. And then I realized, like, I can't work with humans. I could work with a machine, but I'm bad at this. I suck as a coach because I can't work with the human. So then I'd say that in my library, there are more psychology books than anything. And I still think I suck at this game, but I'm better than I was then. So I think we're doing something okay. But the behavior change and the identity change is so, I would say it is the game, because the body will follow. Form follows function, right? Getting stronger on the deadlift, bigger glutes, bigger hamstrings, period. That you're not going to have, like you're not going to have a 500-pound deadlift and a little ass. It just ain't going to happen, right? The same thing, though, you're not going to be able to work up to that without also building the character that drives it.
And this all comes back to the psychology element. I think to tie this up, I hope that you have time to like read through what I send you on WhatsApp after, but to tie this up, I said that we were going to address this at the beginning, and we will have to, you'll probably hear from us again in the future. I'll see what Brennan says, because I have had an epiphany of the most amazing thing ever. Fingers crossed. But fats. Can we just tie it up with a thought on fats? Because we've hopped on enough about carbs. we don't ever need to talk about protein, because that's said enough. Carbs are the ones that are the unsung hero.
Yeah.
That sounds like ChatGPT now, because everyone says it too much, but they're literally the unsung hero. Fats. Let's just tie it up with the generalization of fats.
Yeah. there's a sweet spot, man. And like, I need 4.2 liters of oil in my car. If I put 5 liters of oil in my car, that's not better for my engine. If I put 3 liters of oil in my car, that's also not better for my engine. I need to put 4.2. There's a sweet spot. And yes, it's a little bit of a range, but like you don't need as much fats as you think. And this is the thing that always gets me too is like, well, I eat tons of carbs and it bloats me up. It's like, all right, well, what'd you eat for carbs? Well, I had these donuts. I'm like, that was fat, bro. Like those donuts that you just showed me, most of the calories came from fat. So you're not fueling your workout as much as you are just that's your fat intake for the day, you know? And the quality of the fat, like are those trans fats? Are they saturated fats? Are they monounsaturated? Are we balancing that stuff out? Because that's a whole different, like, there's a rabbit hole we could go down here. But the idea that people think of things as carbs, I remember the first time I started like competing, you know, and prepping for a show. Sorry, competing in bodybuilding. I was prepping for a show and I still was fairly young to the nutrition game. And I looked at my carbs. I was like, dude, I get to eat 300 grams of carbs today. And I came out of a low carb. I was the low carber, right? Name a diet. I've tried it. I've done them all. The intermittent fasting, keto, high carb, no carb, vegan. I did them all, right? So uh, I was coming out of a low carb kind of paleo thing. And my coach gave me like 300 grams of carbs. I was stoked. So I went and got some Oreos. And I realized I could only have two because I went over on my fats so damn fast from the Oreos. I'm like, these aren't carbs? Oh, and that's what I think people get hung up on. That's the thing that I see most often is people think, well, I eat a lot of carbs. You know, let's say we've broken the fear of carbohydrate. Yay, right? You're not afraid of carbs anymore. So you're eating carbs. What are you choosing? Oh, I hate to break this to you, but you're not getting as many carbs as you think, and you're getting a whole lot more fats as you think. And I'm sorry, but you don't use fats in your workout. They don't, they aren't the gas for the engine. Think of them like the oil for the engine. You don't need as much. And too much isn't like more isn't better. There is a sweet spot. And maybe there's a satiety question here where it's like you feel more satiated on higher fat. Okay, we'll titrate a little bit, but I'm not going to put you on a 150 grams of fat a day diet and think like and have you expect a positive change. Because I love all these, like when people cite these studies of people who are like they are an isocaloric diet and one group did high fat and one group did high carb and they lost the same amount of weight. I guarantee the people on the high carb diet, because I've done this experiment in my gym so many times over the years, look better in the mirror, performed better in the gym, felt better. Those people had a very different look in the mirror when they had high carbs. I like to tell people the story because I come out of some eating habits. But the first time I saw my abs was when I went to the convenience store and I grabbed a bag of sugar, just straight sugar, and I put 80 grams of sugar in my protein shake that day. And I did that for a couple of weeks because again, low carb Brandon, I started adding carbs, and no, they weren't quality carbs. They weren't very fibrous. I was eating some veggies, but I was not getting enough carbs to begin with. And I started adding a ton of sugar to my protein shakes, and I saw my abs for the very first time. And then, of course, I learned more from actually, I'm like, okay, let's go get some nutrition, like education, and hire a bodybuilding coach to help me with my nutrition personally. And like, sure enough, when he brought my carbs up, I got leaner and leaner and leaner. And man, I explain it as like, think of your body with all these metabolic processes, hormonal, cognitive, performative. All of these processes have all of these like sliders and switches, right? And the more carbs you eat, the more sliders you're pushing up and switches you're turning on. There are more things your body can do now. And with fats, there are a lot fewer sliders and switches. And it's like, okay, you've maxed it out. Now you're just dumping fat on the circuit board. Like you're gunking up the system. Too much is too much. And then, they'll swing the other way and have no fats. And I was like, well, don't do that either.
Yeah. What I want to add on to that before we tie it up is that when I started out, it was always women need to eat 70 grams of protein 70 grams of fats or 60 grams of fats. It's like, oh, really? That's the worst thing that you can blanket on all women, because what if someone's small? What if someone weighs less? That is absolutely ridiculous. And no, there is no one saying that you need to eat a certain amount of fats, because you can actually get away with quite a little amount of fats, given that they're essential fatty acids. Now, you wouldn't want to go by on the minimal amount of fats that you can have long term, because that wouldn't be great either. And like you said, it's taking away the joy from your life, because the joy from your life usually comes from fats, not carbs. Fats are usually the culprit. And that's usually the reason why a lot of people can't like see the results they want, because fats don't do much for performance. It's carbs that do everything for performance. And if we wanted hormone friendly stuff, it would be carbs that are hormone friendly, because what's the least hormone friendly? Not recovery. What helps recovery? Carbs. Funny that it's not actually fats, it's carbs that are great for hormone health.
And you know what else will throw off your hormones is like overeating calories in general, especially from saturated fat. Like if you want to induce type 2 diabetes, you overfeed saturated fats and get a lot of calories in, you know.
That's actually the
So
funny
like,
thing, because people are so worried about insulin resistance from carbs. It's like saturated fats are actually worse.
yeah. And the research has been pretty clear on that. Like, is it a bad fat? No, it's bad when you have too much. But just like anything, too much of anything is going to be problematic. It's just really easy to have too many fats, because I mean, it I can get 300 calories from something this big if it's all fat, and I can get 300 calories from something this big if it's more like carbs, protein, fiber, right? So it's just really easy to overeat them. So I think this is where the good food, bad food thing comes from, is like, well, don't eat that because it's bad food. Like, no, eat the right amount of it. It's really easy to overeat. And I think that's the hardest struggle I have with clients, is breaking the good food, bad food thing, because when you fall down the good food, bad food rabbit hole, you end up over restricting and getting that what's the word I was looking for? I said it earlier, that kind of restrictive mindset, right? That scarcity mindset, which means when you do eventually break and get your hands on it, you're going to overdo it, and the pendulum will swing to the other end, and you will just gorge on this stuff. And this is where, like, when I'm working with a nutrition client, like when we look at the binges, we don't try to address them directly. We address them indirectly, and we use them as a metric for how are we doing on our nutrition overall. Are the binges becoming less frequent? We're making progress. Are the binges getting smaller? Are you more mindful during the binges? Are we finding we're eating less? Then yeah, we're making some progress here.
I think that
Does that make
part's,
sense?
yeah, I actually think that part's really powerful, to realize that progress isn't just seen in these big amounts that we expect, that we're told progress should be seen in. And this is where we need to move away from just using fat loss metrics, because you're never going to lose fat permanently, and nor should lose fat be your only prime reason that you exist as a human being. There are so many other elements of your life. And if lose fat is your only goal, you can only lose fat until when? Then what? If that's the only thing that you mean as, like, you see as progress, then your whole life has no meaning anymore. So I think this is such a powerful place to leave the conversation. And I hope you guys get so much from this. I'm going to, well, if he says no, I'll get you guys to pester him, and I'll just make him say yes in every way that I can. But you'll probably hear Brandon back on here again in many times to come as well. Fingers crossed. I have a feeling you'll say yes, but we'll have to see. We'll see. But this podcast is your jam-packed Bible that you need to listen to twice over, 3 times over, because instead of listening to hooligans online that make you feel fragile as a person, where no, actually you're only fragile because you haven't stuck to something that builds you up for long enough. Listen to this over, take notes, reach out to us. Let us know if you have any questions. We'll probably be taking more questions for the next time as well. But honestly, the best thing you can do is build up your shield of armor, like Brandon said, and like he started the podcast with. We need to start looking at the psychological element of everything, because nothing will change if your inner world, like you said at the end as well, if your inner world has not changed in any way, don't expect your outward world to change in a way that sustains, because nothing is there to help it stick. what makes it stick is what happens on the inside as you go through the process and grow your character. Is there anything else that you want to leave them with? And I don't know where they can actually find you, what you use the most.
tfgu.net is our gym website. We don't really do a ton. We do some online stuff, but yeah, you can kind of see what we do there. So it's Training from the Ground Up is the name of the gym, but tfgu.net. And you know, I'm somewhere on the socials, but I try to stay offline for the most part. So
I love that.
and if
Good.
I'm sorry, if I were going to leave them with anything, I would say start where you are, use what you have, do what you can, and just keep it as simple as possible. Like the more complicated something looks online, the more you should steer clear of it. The simpler, like the better. To a degree, you know, make things as simple as possible, but no simpler, right? So yeah, vet your fitness influencers by their clients and the amount of time they spend actually training humans, not writing things and not training humans.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like the more that people move away from that in-person element and start going more and more into research, the harder it becomes. And don't let the argument that, yeah, but rats and humans are both mammals, they're the same. Well, actually, no, because the parts that they're not the same in are the parts that are actually the most essential for body composition. And also, I forgot I wanted to mention this as a tie-up. Sorry, I'm elongating it more, but it's hugely important. The fats and the carbs thing that I said is the worst thing that we can cite as they both lead to the same results. Yeah, well, that's in a research lab. Anything done in a research lab, take with 70% seriousness, because once you get them out of a research lab into real life, those things pan out differently. Not only is there more satiety, there's feeling better, there's all these other things. And if that was a calorie deficit, they won't be in a calorie deficit anymore, because after a certain period of time, keto stops being as fulfilling and satiating, because now your body is craving
But most
for
people don't live
survival.
on it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Also, in vivo and in vitro are two different things for sure, but you have to think longevity. You have to think about all the variables that are not being listed here, and I think there's a lack of nuance, and that's the red flag for me. Is like, if there's a lack of nuance, then run. You know, there should always be, when you listen to somebody with a PhD who actually does research, and it's good research, you will rarely hear them say, except for things that we've proven, you know, very conclusively, you will rarely hear them say, we know that. You will usually hear them say, well, here's what we see when, and as a result, we think that probably this is what we get. So like there's a lot of room for nuance and discussion, and I think there's a lot of nuance lost in these studies. Like, they lost weight. Okay. Of that, were they weight training? For one, are they living your life or are they living theirs? And that was, I think, a point I wanted to make in the comparison point is like, you can't compare your point A to someone else's point X. You don't have their history, their genetics. You don't have their mindset. You don't have anything that they have that's the same. You're different. So like, you can't compare yourself to another person. I can't compare myself to, you know, Brandon 10 years ago, because he had a completely different life story than this Brandon does. You know, and a lot of things change, and so there's a lot of nuance that people need to consider and need to understand that stuff exists. And like, you have to look at, if you're going to look at research, you can't look at it study by study, just reading the abstract and moving on, or worse, reading the headline and moving on, because that headline was written by somebody who doesn't know how to read studies in the first place. But you have to look at the entire body of research, which, unless you're a researcher, you can't do. You need to trust somebody who has been there, done that, and is still doing it successfully. So rather than the Google search that showed you the study that you cherry picked or that somebody else cherry picked, like, yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah, actually that's huge. And just because someone is promoted a lot or has a PhD doesn't make them credible or believable in the area that you want it to be, nor does it make them actually say the truth.
Well, what is that PhD in, and are they working with humans still? Or did they close down their gym to just do studies? And what kind of studies are they doing? Has it furthered the field? Has their work changed the field at all?
But
The answer
that's
is
the thing,
no.
because sometimes it has, to start with, but then they start going down the hooligan, Stacey Sims. Then they start going down the unhinged route. It's just like, make sure you vet your sources and don't stay. This is the best way. Don't stay clinged to old advice. Allow yourself to realize there's new research that comes out and that people can change, especially when they get bought out or when it's on for example, Mel Robbins' podcast that gets broadcast to the millions. Things are going to be a lot more clickbait, but then people just like having their way of saying things so that they look like this one guru. But anyway, with that, I'm going to tie this up here because I have a lot that I'm going to be sending Brennan, and hopefully we have something exciting coming to you. But I hope you gained a lot from this. Please, please shoot me a message, shoot him a message, and give this a 5-star rating if you can. It would mean the absolute world to me. And you will hear me on the next podcast. I love you all.